You're listening to Soap Dirt, the latest in television entertainment news.
Hey there, Young and the Restless fans. This is Belinda from Soap Dirt. I want to talk about Unhinged Phyllis Summers doubling down for payback on Diane Jenkins. So this coming week, by Friday, July 14th, Phyllis Summers is going to be in handcuffs. So it seems like, oh, okay, she's going to, pay for faking her death, which actually isn't a crime. Did you know that? It's not illegal to fake your death. It's only illegal to fake evidence, waste the police time, if you do it to avoid taxes, something like that, some kind of fraud sort of thing. But just faking your death in and of itself is not a crime. So you'd hope with Phyllis being arrested that she would have learned her lesson, but that's a heck no, a hard no. Phyllis has not only learned her lesson, and she may actually be worse than before this whole Stark thing, but savvier and stealthier in her approach to destroying Diane Jenkins. All right, we're going to talk about that more, but if you haven't, please reach down, click that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our Y&R spoilers, news, and other updates. All right, and if you are subscribed, thank you for tuning in. Okay, so when Phyllis heard about Kyle and Summer's split, she immediately said, it's all Diane's fault. I mean, not that I'm Team Diane over Team Phyllis, because they're both just chaos in a bottle, and I enjoy both of them. But she can say that the genesis of their breakup began when Diane came back from the dead. But the reality is the straw that broke the camel's back, the breaking point, the tipping point was Phyllis and getting Summer to lie and cover for her. So it's just very interesting that she's like, it's all Diane's fault. But if, Phyllis hadn't fixated on Diane, none of this would have happened. She's so certain that Diane hasn't changed. Okay, so you stand back and you give her all the room to hang herself, to prove that she hasn't changed, to prove that she's garbage. But in the back of Phyllis's mind, she was like, oh, I'm protecting people. So it's just all so messy. And if she hadn't fixated on Diane, she wouldn't have got involved in Stark. Then she wouldn't have to fake her death. She wouldn't have to kill him. There wouldn't have been this Summer split. So it really wasn't Diane's return. It was Phyllis's reaction to Diane's return that has caused this domino effect in people's lives, because you have to understand, especially if you're a parent, why Diane came back. She came back for Kyle. She couldn't stay away any longer. And a lot of people still think that she is running a con. I actually don't think she is, but we're going to talk about that more in just a second. Already Phyllis wants to try again. She was already talking about that Diane still needs to pay. And now she has to pursue this vendetta because Phyllis is marching under someone else's orders. Just like she fell under Jeremy Stark's control before, this week Phyllis is about to fall under Tucker McCall's control. Tucker finds the EMT. Tucker pays off the EMT. All right. And now the EMT will say whatever Tucker wants, and that gives him leverage over Phyllis. He can tell Phyllis, go destroy Diane, so that Ashley will be happy that Diane's being tormented, but Ashley won't spend time doing it. By the end of the week, Tucker delivers this little box with a bow on it to Ashley, calls it her wedding present, and it's something to do. Maybe it's footage of the EMT, saying all this stuff so that she can see that Phyllis is going to get away with it, and that leaves her on the loose to pursue Diane. So there are some things that I definitely think Phyllis could do. I think there's 5 things she can do while doubling down to destroy Diane's life. The first thing she can do is she can target Diane at Jabot. Remember, Phyllis Summers is a hacker, and she used to work at Jabot, and she worked at Marchetti, so she probably has backdoor access to their systems. She could, screw up some of Diane's reports. She could set it up to make Diane look like she's embezzling or that she's tampering with products. When you have access to a company's servers and systems, you can wreak havoc, and Phyllis Summers might do that and it may turn out that it makes Billy regret his alliance, and it could prove that Ashley is right about her, all because Phyllis is playing little games. The second thing that Phyllis could do is she could fabricate some evidence. Phyllis has been hacking Stark's email. Remember, she was trying to look for anything that might implicate her. She might do the reverse now that she has access to that and alter some things to implicate Diane, to make it look like Stark and Diane were in cahoots when they both first came to Genoa City, and she can make it look like Diane was plotting against Jack and was carrying it to some extent, and then things didn't work out with Stark, and so then Diane decided to make a play for Jack's money. She can set up emails with all sorts of shady communications to make it look like Diane has been working with Stark all along, and that is the reason that Stark supposedly kidnapped Phyllis, which is going to be the story they're going to try and sell to the cops later this week on Y&R. She could also try and discredit Diane to Kyle. She could make it seem like that Diane knew about Harrison for years because she was keeping tabs on him, but she kept the secret of his son from him. That would really hurt Kyle. She could make it out in some of these, fake some emails and make it out like Diane was saying things like, oh, I can just fleece my son for money. He's wealthy. He's an Abbott heir. Just stuff like that. She could fake some emails. She could fake some text. Tucker might help do it. And, she might think that could help repair Summer and Kyle's marriage if Diane is discredited and Phyllis is shown to look like the hero in this situation. A fourth thing that she could do is Phyllis could try and blow up Diane and Jack's wedding. I don't mean literally, although she could try and do it literally. But if none of her other schemes and scams work out, she might want to target them at their nuptials. Remember that Jack Abbott is pushing for a pretty fast wedding. He really wants to get his ring on the finger and make it official. Phyllis could crash it. She could just go nuts. She could make a scene. They might have to call Fairview Mental Institute, have the orderlies come and haul her away. Maybe Phyllis just gets too carried away and spirals into a legitimate breakdown and winds up getting a timeout in the mental institution. There's all this hate and obsession and revenge and, then Tucker blackmailing her. It all just might to be too much, and she just snaps, and she needs some therapy. She needs some chill, and she needs a timeout. However, we have one last absolutely outrageous idea for what Phyllis could do to Diane to target her. And this is way out there, and it includes another blast from the past. Before we dig into that, if you haven't already, please click subscribe so you don't miss any of our Y&R updates, news, and more. And we'd love it if you clicked a like on this video if you're enjoying it. So, what is the very worst thing that Phyllis could do to Diane? Well, maybe it's something that Phyllis considers one of the worst things ever done to her. And this horrible thing that was done to Phyllis was done by Victor Newman. Do you remember the name Marco Anicelli? He is the South American drug dealer who looks just like Jack Abbott because Peter Bergman played both the roles. So Victor had facilitated Kelly Andrews. She was holding the real Jack Abbott on this little island thing. I don't remember if Kelly kidnapped him or Victor kidnapped him and just dropped him off. If you remember, please drop the comment. I love when you guys remember these really old plots that aren't, on my front mental burner. So Marco Anicelli was pretending to be Jack, and he was living with Phyllis as her husband. He was sleeping in her bed with her. And when the truth came out, Phyllis freaked out. And a lot of people said that because Phyllis didn't know it was Marco, it was essentially months and months and months of rape, as in non-consensual sexual activity, because she did not know that was not Jack. And a lot of people basically say that Victor was having her raped by putting this man in her life. It was just a horrible, horrible thing he did to her. In fact, much more horrible than what Diane did to Phyllis back in the day, if you think about it. Why isn't Phyllis still trying to destroy the mustache? That seems like a more logical revenge target given what he did. All right, but I just wanted to remind you of that plot because what if Phyllis contacted Marco Anicelli, who last we saw had had one ear cut off so that he could never masquerade as Jack again. What if she contacted Marco Anicelli and had him kidnap Diane and take her away forever? And let's make it clear, even though they cut his ear off, can't they grow a spare ear? Isn't that something they're doing in labs, like attaching stem cells with a matrix to rats' ears? I swear I saw it on some docuseries. Maybe it was a sci-fi show and I'm mistaken. But I seem to remember something about growing ears on rats. I watch too much TV, clearly. But so with or without the ear, Phyllis could get him out of that jail if he's not already out and say, hey, do you want to hurt Jack Abbott? Well, of course Marco would want to hurt Jack Abbott. Here, take his fiance. And that would be the absolute worst thing that Phyllis could do. Would she do that thing? Maybe. I think she might. What do you guys think?
Thank you for being a loyal listener. Follow us wherever you get your podcast, because you don't want to miss the next episode. Soap Dirt is on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more.